Welcome everybody to GrappleFK_media UFC Fight Night Overeem v Sakai fighter picks. We're going to go into the Brian Kelleher versus Brian Kelleher fight. This is a mistake by the UFC, everyone. This should be Natividad. What's Natividad's first name?
Kevin
Natividad.
Solid
I'm
name,
going to
Kevin.
call him Kevin from now on. Kevin.
Kevin.
On the right. I mean, they've done a really poor job here, haven't they? They've literally just copied them. They haven't even... What have they done? They've just done a mirror image.
It's not professional, Walid. I expect more.
It really isn't. I might have a word with Dana about this. Yeah, it's not right. But yeah, I mean, Brian Kelleher, very experienced in the UFC, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. I think he's coming off 2 wins and a unanimous decision loss. So he's won 2 out of the last 3. Yeah, very experienced. He's had over 10 UFC fights. A mixture of decisions, KOs, and submissions. Natividad Kevin seems like a very good striker. We've gone through some of his LFA fights. He's got a very extensive amateur record, 13-1. Quite a good professional record, 9-1. However, some of his opponents have been on the shit side, let's say that. But I mean, that's what you get when you're coming from another organization into the UFC. You know, you can go up against guys who've won 5 fights and lost 10. So
I think here is particularly marked the level of shitness of his opponents. that kind of worries me. Obviously, we don't expect, like fantastic opponents in, the regional circuit.
Yeah.
But some of these guys he's fought who are 7-7, it's difficult to know the guy's level when you're facing that kind of opponent.
Exactly. And we haven't seen much of his ground game or wrestling. Whereas with Brian Kelleher, his wrestling is decent and his ground game is pretty good. So
yeah, I'm looking at Kevin's record. So for example, the guy Andy Perez, who he fought in 2019, had a record of 7-7 at the time.
Yeah.
And Kevin Natividad got the split decision. My concern is that if you're fighting somebody who's 7-7 on the regional circuit, you need to be mauling that guy.
Yeah.
A split decision is a red flag, to be honest. I mean, to be fair, he's fought other guys who are 10-5, and he's knocked them out in, the second round. There's another guy, Tyler Bialecki, 8-7, knocked him out in the first round.
Yeah, he's got a few knockouts.
Yes, he does. It's just the competition is really poor. So, I mean, 2017, he lost to a guy who was 3-2, knocked out in 9 seconds in the first round. But that could be bad luck, like it happens, right?
Yeah.
But it's not looking good, man.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Kelleher is very seasoned as well. So it's not like he's getting an easy first fight. He's getting a pretty tough go of things, I think.
I mean, to be honest, Brian Kelleher is a 50-50 fighter.
He's a 50-50 fighter in the UFC.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which in the scheme of things is pretty awesome. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like he'll fuck up most of the world, right?
Yeah.
But in the UFC, it's just not great. He'll win one, he'll lose one, he'll win a couple, then he'll lose another one.
Yeah.
And the people he's beaten they're unknown guys. They're guys who've just come into the UFC. They don't have the best records. And, he'll dispose of them. When you put Brian Kelleher up against, say, a Marlon Vera, a John Lineker, a Montel Jackson, Cody Stamen, he loses. Yeah. So I think we've kind of identified Brian Kelleher's level, which is okay, but not great.
Yeah, like top 40-ish, top 30, top 40-ish, probably at featherweight. Yeah, top 40 probably.
Bantamweight, right?
Is this at bantamweight? Sorry. It says featherweight here. Is that another mistake they've made?
What does it say? Featherweight on the UFC?
Yeah, it says it on the site. Featherweight bout, Brian Kelleher
Okay.
versus Kelleher.
Yeah. So this must be a featherweight. Presumably, this is a last-minute thing, and they don't have time to cut weight.
We should mention that he was due to fight Ricky Simone, and I'm assuming that was meant to be at bantamweight.
Yeah, probably.
So yeah,
That
so
would have
this
been
is
a
probably
sick
just a lot.
fight. That would have been a great
Yeah,
fight. I love
yeah,
Ricky Simone. But yeah, this is like a shit replacement, to be honest. So, I mean, whenever I look at Brian Kelleher, I'm thinking he's probably going to lose because he's not that great, to be honest.
mm.
But against this guy, Kevin Natividad, I think this is a mismatch, and Brian Kelleher wins.
Yeah, same here. Although Kevin does look quite good on the feet, I just don't think he has the overall mixed skill set for this fight. And obviously, he hasn't fought the same kind of competition.
Yeah, I mean,
So yeah, I don't think I don't think he can beat Brian Kelleher.
yeah. I
I'd
mean,
be
Brian
very
Kelleher's got
surprised.
decent takedowns. He's got some wrestling. He's got some jiu-jitsu. He's
Yeah,
okay on the feet. Like, he's knocked people out in the UFC.
yeah, he's got a mixture of wins on his record. There's like
He
5 or
does, yeah.
6 KOs, 8, 9 submissions, 5, 6 decisions. It's decent. It's not bad. So yeah, I think Brian Kelleher will probably finish this guy. I think he'll probably sub him.
I think Brian Kelleher can probably do what he wants to this guy.
I think more likely he'll if I was Brian Kelleher, I would take him down and sub him. That's probably the safest bet.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to say Brian Kelleher via submission. Probably round 1.
Round 1. Okay, that'd be an interesting bet. I wonder what the odds are on that.
I wouldn't bet on round 1 or a submission. I'll just bet on. I'll probably add Brian Kelleher to my accumulator.
Oh yeah, that's a given. Yeah. Well, I mean, he could. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the odds are on that, because if it's good, you're putting like £2 down and getting 20 back. It's very possible that he could submit him in round 1. The guy doesn't look like he's got much ground game.
Yeah, it's worth looking into. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
Kelleher's 9-4, 9-4 for Brian Kelleher. Natividad is 4-7.
Yeah.
So you bet £9 on Kelleher, you get 13 back. Which is probably fair.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, so just add him to the accumulator, I guess. The old accumulator. Yeah, I think Brian Kelleher, and so do you. Sub. I'll go round 2.
Sick.
I think he'll feel him out round 1, and then sub him in round 2.
Cool. And
there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Brian Kelleher for the win. Again, this is a mistake by the UFC. That should be Kevin just Kevin. We'll go with Kevin.
Call him Kev.
Kev.
Big Kev.
Kev from Hawaii.
Kev from Hawaii.
Kev from Hawaii. Okay. We'll catch everyone soon. Stay tuned for more fighter picks, and thank you for listening.
Bye.